Hey, what's up you guys? GameDad here, coming at you guys with another Atari video. This time we take a look at the few games that I have for the Atari 7800. Now this is going to be a shorter collection video because I do not have that many games in my 7800 collection, but the ones that I have are actually pretty fun games. So come with me as we check out the games. Centipede was released by Atari in 1987, and as you can see from this footage, it plays just like any other Centipede game. However, on the 7800, the graphics tended to be a little bit better, much like that of an actual arcade machine. So as you can see, that would have been a major draw. The audio was better, the graphics were better, and the games just played more efficiently. So it was pretty nice to be able to play this versus the actual 5200 game. One thing that I also noticed was a little more vibrant about this game with the coloring was that as you play through, you can see a clear change in the actual gameplay where it gives you just a much more vibrant forest that you're going through and, taking out the centipedes and going through all the trees and stuff like that. I really enjoyed playing this game on the 7800 versus the 5200. Plus, the controls were way better. Up next, we have Choplifter, released by Atari in 1987. And this Choplifter plays just like really any other Choplifter. It's a pretty self-explanatory game. But as with most other games, as they go on through the ages, they end up getting a lot more sophisticated looking graphically, and the gameplay is just improved. As you can see here versus other old retro consoles of this era, the graphics are better, there's better animations, better audio. They actually look like people instead of little stick figures that are running, and it's just awesome to have this in my collection. And the Choplifter game, I actually kind of went on a buying spree with these a few years back and tried to find Choplifter for every console that I could, because my wife's great uncle was actually a huge fan of just Choplifter in general. He loved playing it on Atari, and he also loved playing it on the Master System. Up next on the list, we have another classic, and that is Dig Dug, released by Atari in 1986. Now, as you can see, the quality of the game capture footage isn't that great. That's because the usual way that I capture footage was only capturing everything in black and white, and I really wanted to be able to show off the colors of the 7800. Now, what I did here, I just had to point a camera at the screen, but as you can see, the colors are great in these games. And unlike the 5200 and its absolutely horrendous controller, the 7800 went back to classics. It went back to the basics of just using a one-button joystick. There are other controllers that you can get, and I had even done a video several months ago where I bought a little kit and made my own NES-style 7800 controller. So that was pretty cool to actually be able to use this while capturing all this footage. Now, as you can see, the gameplay is exactly what you would expect from a Dig Dug game, and it looks great. And here we have Joust, released by Atari in 1987. And I actually have this on a couple other consoles as well, and it's the same thing. Better graphics, better audio, more colorful, and the gameplay is just smoother. In the 7800 version, you can actually pretty clearly see that you're riding an ostrich. Now, I know the focus keeps going in and out, and that's because it's really trying to focus on that CRT screen, which is apparently pretty hard for the camera to do. But going through, you can actually tell what you're doing. It doesn't look like generic stick figures like it did on the Atari 2600. And there's actual definition and a little more, realism to the characters. And that's super appreciated. And I can see how people would have reacted to this back in the day when this first came out. It was probably one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. Up next, we got Mario Bros, released by Atari in 1988, and this is one of the only instances I know of an actual Mario Nintendo game being on a different console, and that was because around this time, Nintendo was just really starting to hit its stride, and Nintendo still wanted to get their name out there. So, as you can see here, you have classic Mario Arcade. It doesn't look as good as an actual arcade machine, but that's okay. The core gameplay is still there, and the game is super fun to play. Now, one thing I did notice about the gameplay versus other systems and the arcade and stuff like that is the way that it does the jumping. It is quite difficult to get it to actually move forward while jumping. You really got to hit it with a run. You can't just diagonal jump straight from the get-go. So, other than that being my only complaint, the game is fun. And what collection would be complete without Ms. Pac-Man, released by Atari in 1986? And this is just like the classic arcade game. And as you can see, by this point, Atari had come a long way since Pac-Man on the 2600, which arguably is a complete garbage game. Now, I was having a bit of controller issues at this point. You know, old Atari controllers by this point, I mean, they're getting to be over 30 years old, so they're bound to have some issues. But I was still able to get around, have a little bit of fun with it, and enjoy some classic Miss Pac-Man. Now here we have Pole Position 2, released by Atari in 1986, and if you saw last week's video on my Atari 5200 collection, I actually had the first Pole Position. Now that one is fun, it's pretty straightforward. This one, however, it was really cool because you got the usual graphics update, etc., but it also added the ability to shift between gears. So that was pretty cool, where you had a new mechanic in the game that helped you when you were going around turns, if you were passing people, and it just added a whole new dimension to the game, which I really appreciated. And on top of all of that, the controls actually got a lot tighter. So instead of having, you know, your car kind of lazily drift around the track, it was really tight controls that helped you feel like you were actually driving one of these cars. And the last game in this collection is Summer Games, released by Atari in 1987. And this, I mean, it's got some great animation style to it, and, you know, it's pretty fluid. You can see with the guy running, the birds going, but then it goes into this super basic menu system, and you just get into, like, some basic, you know, Olympic-style games, because that's what it was for, you know, the Olympic Summer Games. But overall, I mean, I've never really cared for games like this. Even on other consoles, I don't see the appeal. Even though I know it's an older game, controls are more simplistic, things like that, I've just never been drawn to games like this. And as you can tell from my score just there, I don't do very well in them anyways. So there you have it, everyone. That is everything that is currently in my Atari 7800 collection. Now, I know it's not a huge collection, so if you noticed anything that is a must-have for my current collection, or any games that you just think are a lot of fun to play, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, please be sure to also hit those like and subscribe buttons, as well as that little notification bell so you get an alert every time I got a new video coming out. Now, as always, I'm GameDad. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.